What's up guys, it's Trademark and ooh do I have some Kalos Copium for you today. So if you don't know, it is an ongoing idea that we might go to Kalos in the Scarlet and Violet DLC. Let me just talk about something. Here we go. Nintendo Creatures and Game Freak have re-registered the Pokemon X and Y logos just now, and this is getting a lot of people to think some stuff. So let me just go over the current mindset. There's a normal reason for why they would do this and then a copium reason. So naturally I'm going to give you the copium reason, which is that they're covering their bases to reuse X and Y for something, maybe to advertise whatever Kalos DLC we're copiumizing as an X and Y crossover type, like if they called it the X and Y DLC, you feel me? But like I said, there's a couple things to think about, so let me just go down them. First off, next year is the 10-year anniversary of Kalos. Once we hit that early January period, it is going to be officially 10 years since we all saw that trailer announcing the first 3D Pokemon games.
Introducing Pokemon X and Pokemon Y. Coming worldwide October 2013.
Number 2, Pokemon X and Y is unfinished. They had content that they just threw away to move to Sun and Moon, hence why Zygarde has this weird last minute role in the games, and then them making use of the perfect Zygarde they had planned. It was just thrown into Sun and Moon, you collect the cores. Clearly something was supposed to go down here, evidenced by just looking at Xerneas and Yveltal's abilities. They are Dark Aura and Fairy Aura. Zygarde has Aura Break. They never interact. When we first played X and Y, we thought some Rayquaza cutscene would have to happen, and they don't even show Xerneas and Yveltal fighting each other. Yveltal's the death Pokemon, Xerneas is the life Pokemon. We don't even see a world where they both exist. Imagine what story could have come out of Pokemon Z or X2, Y2, whatever it was gonna be. It probably would have been something where someone awakens Xerneas and someone awakens Yveltal. Probably just like Emerald. Maybe Lysander does both, or they introduce a new team that awakens the other one. It sounds like the world had to go into disarray in some way. Maybe Xerneas and Yveltal have another form they were supposed to achieve in the Pokemon Z game, where they would wear the power of life and death. Maybe something to tie into Mega Evolution. This is the game that introduced Mega Evolution, and AZ creating that weapon using Xerneas and Yveltal's power is what creates the Mega Stones. So why do Xerneas and Yveltal not have a Mega Evolution? There's so many unanswered questions. More than likely, Xerneas and Yveltal probably have Mega Evolution like forms that they would have gotten in Pokemon Z, and they would be threatening the world, both of them being around, being controlled by someone maybe, and that's why Zygarde would have to pop up. Maybe while the world is in chaos, you have to go into a cave, find Zygarde, do some mini quests, and then bring him onto the block and tell him to cut everything out. I just want you to think about that. Pokemon X and Y were the Mega Evolution games, and Xerneas and Yveltal essentially have Mega Evolution power that's never explained. Clearly, all of this was thrown out because they wanted to move past Pokemon Z. The anime has some fun making use of whatever notes they got from Pokemon, Perfect Zygarde's existence, the cores, and they made a very good story, but clearly there's so much more that was supposed to go down. So here's another thing to think about. Time passes after Pokemon X and Y. Sun and Moon takes place after, which is why these two trainers pop up in those games, and they give you the Mega Stone. And just like that, time passes between Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet as well, which is why you can see Sonia's book that she writes after Pokemon Sword and Shield ends in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So we have time passing between these two games and these two games. If we were to assume all of them have time passing in between them, then it's been quite a bit of time since Pokemon X and Y, maybe 5 or 10 years. And so there could be real potential to going back, even if it's not to the mainland Kalos and more to what's in southern Kalos. Maybe something we couldn't originally go to in Pokemon X and Y, or maybe just 1 or 2 cities in Kalos that we'd be able to go to. There's probably new gym leaders, maybe a couple new Mega Stones discovered, though let's not touch on Mega Stones, because that's crazy to think that right up this landmass are Mega Stones. And that also moves me to another point. Mega Evolution is alluded to through Salamence and Iron Valiant in this game. I should say Roaring Moon. They say that Roaring Moon looks like Mega Salamence, and the more I look at Iron Valiant, I'm starting to see that there is something to do with Mega Evolution and its design as well. Maybe whatever scientists made Iron Valiant took mega elements when he made it. So one naturally has mega features, one artificially has mega features. They still allude to it. And then another thing to talk about in terms of a Kalos DLC is that AZ is alive and has wandered around since 3,000 years ago. Modern Paldea is only 2,000 years old. He probably knows everything on some darts type. AZ saw Paldea before it became Paldea. AZ probably had a drink with the Paldean king. He probably knows whatever ruinous king got greedy and caused these 4 Pokemon to turn into the ruinous Pokemon. And AZ is right up there. He ruled 3,000 years ago right up that landmass, and he clearly is not just traveling around Kalos for 3,000 years. He's been traveling around the world, and he even goes to Hoenn and drops a couple megastones off. There's so much potential to draw connections and tell a continuing story that leads into some Kalos lore. It's gonna be a long while till we have to revisit Pokemon X and Y. I mean, next games are Black and White remakes, so maybe it being exactly the 10-year anniversary of Pokemon X and Y, they could do it justice and tell some of the Pokemon Z elements in this DLC. And so let's talk about Zygarde's role. Zygarde's role is that he is a delete button when something threatens the ecosystem. Not just a simple threat, something that threatens to put the world into disarray. Guess what? We never get to see Zygarde do this. And Paradox Pokemon are literally that exact threat. Described exactly by Sada and Turo, or the AI ones, these future and ancient Pokemon will destroy the current ecosystem of Pokemon, trample them, eat them, and take over the modern world. They cannot exist. They're not allowed to. So in the DLC, if something comes out about the 3rd Crystal Legendary and it's like actually alive and about to threaten all of Paldea, uncontrollably bringing in all these Paradox Pokemon into the current day, who better than to whoop this man's bum than the dude who's right up there? Perfect Zygarde. Their very existence brings destruction to the ecological balance of this modern age. The original professor would say that such destruction is a natural part of life. When the Kalos region's ecosystem falls into disarray, it appears and reveals its secret power. It's hypothesized that it's monitoring those who destroy the ecosystem from deep in the cave where it lives. Now, when it comes to Area Zero, it's kind of a contained threat. Only Iron Treads and Great Tusk have escaped the crater in Area Zero and are wandering the desert. But aside from them, everything is contained. Zygarde doesn't have to do anything about it. They mentioned that he's looking at Kalos' ecosystem, so you would think maybe he don't care about the other regions. Clearly that's not the case, because threats can come from other regions. But in Kalos, Zygarde is found in this odd cave called Terminus Cave, that the Easter egg is that Terminus Cave is shaped like Perfect Zygarde. There's another cave all the way in Alola called the Resolution Cave, where in the center you find a couple Zygarde cells. This cave is also shaped like Perfect Zygarde. Don't think too much about why the cave is shaped like him, like he just went in there and grew big and then grew small again, but think that Zygarde clearly is going to different regions. This is Alola. This is on the other side of the world, on some tiny island near the US. So if Zygarde's keeping watch on Alola, he's clearly keeping watch on the region right next to his. It wipes out all those who oppose it, showing not a shred of mercy. And then look at this though. Perfect Zygarde has enough power to overwhelm even Xerneas or Yveltal. Now, how interesting of you to mention those when you've never even told the story of its connection to Xerneas and Yveltal. I'm telling you, there's a whole lost continuation of Pokemon X and Y's lore. So what I'm saying here is, if the 3rd Legendary goes crazy, he's alive in Area Zero and he's threatening Paldea, Zygarde, logically, this is what he's been waiting for. All sorts of things could happen. Maybe in the first DLC, you go to Kalos and you learn about Zygarde lore. Just Southern Kalos, not too much. And you learn about these scientists who are studying Zygarde. Maybe they say something like Zygarde cells have been disappearing from Kalos, like they're reforming somewhere else. And maybe in the second DLC, this is when the 3rd Legendary breaks out in Area Zero's crater, and Zygarde is in Paldea and you get to see them whoop each other. Imagine the countless outcomes that could happen. Like in the climax, AZ is in Area Zero with you and he's telling you about lore between Kalos and Galar maybe. Like, does no one want to address the question that Kalos was at war with someone and this landmass is connected to them? It could have been an ancient Terrasta war with Mega Evolution, because the current Terastal was only invented 10 years ago. Think of Galar's room for DLC. There were 2 DLC, none of which happened in mainland Galar. They took you to a new place, the Isle of Armor, the Crown Tundra, which is Southern Galar. And another reason that they did this is so that Pokemon can make it look interesting in the trailers and in promotion so that you buy the DLC. The notion of unlocking a new location for your 20 bucks is more than exciting than more story taking place in the same location. And Pokemon knows this. So would the same thing happen in Paldea? Sure, they could simply continue the story in the known Paldea region, maybe unlock a deeper part of the crater or some place that was closed off. There is this door that we can't go into. But to make it flashy for people to buy, because Pokemon aims to make money after all, why wouldn't they throw in a new location we'd be able to visit? They could invent some island that's near Paldea that's where the DLC takes place, or literally Kalos, which is right there. I could go to that part of the map and literally smell Kalos, smell the bread from there. Imagine the feeling of crossing that pathway to Kalos and getting the same vibes as the bridge between Kanto and Johto. The fat man who says you just took your first step into Kanto. Even if we don't go to all of Kalos and it's just one small area, it would be more than enough to look exciting in a trailer that announces a DLC. And so it's just interesting to see them trademark these logos. Now on the flip side, let's talk about a normal reason this could have happened. It's 10 years exactly, right? Maybe they're just re-registering their trademarks, covering their grounds, and that's it. Let's just see where it leads. Let me throw my dates back at you. Like I said, January 8th is a very strong day that this DLC could be announced, and if not, it's Pokemon Day. It's almost guaranteed Pokemon Day, but we might get lucky and it be January 8th because they want the world to be as aware as possible. So if it's announced in January and the first DLC comes out in June, that's a whole 2 months of extra hype they could get versus if they announce it on Pokemon Day. More likely, I imagine they announce the DLC or third version, I imagine it's a DLC though, on January 8th. And then on Pokemon Day, they maybe announce some Pokemon spin-offs, like maybe a different Mystery Dungeon remake, anything. There's always been spin-off games every year in Pokemon, if I remember correctly. And this year, 2022, was the only year there were no spin-offs because we had the 2 main series games. I'm sure they'll get back into it, and that would be the focus of Pokemon Day. Let's just wait until January and see what happens. Anyhow, that's it. Go on and shank that like button. Let me know your thoughts about the Copium we're all inhaling and going to Kalos in the DLC. This could really lead to something exciting. I hope you guys had fun. I'll see you on the next video. Take care.